Welcome to Data, Dollars, and Dynasty, the podcast where data meets destiny. 3 voices, 1 mission, using data to build a dynasty. Next.
The day that you wake up and you realize nobody's coming to rescue you, will be the best day in your life. That's going to be the best day ever for you. Because each day moving forward, you're going to fight. And I just think this AI stuff, what I want people to do, because I just know there's a lot of people out there who are just absolutely clueless on what's coming, is I want people to understand that nobody's going to come rescue you.
Plus,
everything that I do will be for the advancement of those around me, to help people pull people up. I think that's what we're here for. I'm in it just to learn and get better every single day. So when we put stuff out there, it just gives me more empowerment to grow and to keep pushing.
also,
Nothing's gonna be perfect. It's just simple as it is. If you are perfect, then you must not be human. Because like I said, we're all imperfect. We're here for a reason. We're here to do what we have to do as far as enlightening people and telling them new stuff. So we're gonna continue doing that. And if you like it, cool. If you don't, then of course, go ahead and take your energy somewhere else.
now welcoming your hosts, Jeremy Sr., JJ, and Jayden.
Welcome to the 10th episode of Data, Dollar, Dynasty. I'm your host, Jeremy Williams Sr., and I have on the podcast with me my co-host and sons, JJ Williams
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to this podcast.
and Jayden Williams.
What's going on, everyone?
We've been away for about 4 weeks now. We've got some tremendous updates that we're going to share today regarding this month, September. I'm going to spend some time on these updates, and then we'll dovetail over into a fairly interesting topic. Just watching a video a few weeks ago, we actually heard about this from one of our students in the last podcast, but this video was just talking about the massive amounts of energy that AI is going to require. And this is AI as a result of data centers. So we're going to spend most of today's episode, or at least the middle chunk of the episode, talking about that energy requirement. And then we're going to talk about the need for us to expand our energy industry to accommodate these data centers, what kind of jobs that's going to generate. So we'll spend some time there, and then we'll wrap up the podcast. But before I get started, I want to say to both of you guys, this is our 10th episode. And for one, I can't believe we made it this far. We're right at the 9th month of the year, and we're at episode 10. We may do another episode this month. But I want to just thank you guys for raising your hand. And as I said in a previous podcast, basically holding the fort steady with your pops. And I want to just thank you guys again for allowing me to have you essentially front and center on this ride with me.
Yeah, definitely, of course. It's something that we necessarily don't have to be thanked for, but we definitely appreciate that, Jeremy Sr. Definitely appreciate you recognizing that and bringing that to our attention. And it's a pleasure to be here. I think I probably speak for both Jayden and myself. We've learned a lot, grown a lot. We want to thank you for allowing us to come on here. And we also want to thank our listeners as well for tuning in and, of course, sharing the feedback regarding the podcast. It's definitely a journey that we've all been a part of, and couldn't say that I would rather not be on here. I'd much rather spend my time learning and growing and doing it alongside my father and, of course, my brother with this opportunity that we have. So thank you.
Definitely has been a great journey. I look forward to many more to come. This is just the beginning for us, everyone, but I appreciate everyone who has tuned in so far. And I'm just thankful for us being able to come on here and create a platform. Like I said in that first episode, I hope that people around the world can be touched by this and we can just spread knowledge to those who may need it. So thank you.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Yeah.
What I want to do for this episode, I think we're not going to get in the habit of doing this now, but I wanted to basically offer up this episode to you guys' mom, Mandisha LaFay. That's all I'm going to say. I didn't make you guys by myself. So, 50% of you, at least that's what they say biologically speaking, 50% of you, both of you guys are her. So I want to offer this episode up to your mom. And then also I want to give a shout out to Kia. And what I expect of us as we go through, I talked last episode about evolving. Nothing that we do within any of these companies, any of these initiatives that we're going to start should be the same as it was yesterday. Everything that we do in terms of what we want to offer up to our customers, to this audience, It has to evolve. That's a requirement.
Mhm.
So I always want to evolve to make this podcast better, make it more inclusive, really invite those who were integral to us getting to this day to participate, to play a role even. And what I want us to do is to try to find ways to get Kia involved. So I wrote that there. And to the audience, Kia is my stepdaughter. She's the older sister of JJ and Jayden. She has a passion for data as well, but she's a new mom. So we haven't necessarily tried to get her too heavily involved in what we have going on here, but definitely expecting some episodes in the future to hear her voice echoed beside our voices.
Certainly.
For sure.
All right, so let's get started. This is a month for the ages for us. Man, we have something every week, with the exception of this week, really, where it's going to require that we be on the road, that we be engaging with our customers. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time with each activity that we have, but a couple of things I want to highlight. We had talked in a previous episode about our premier health center customer, health center based out of Rock Hill, South Carolina, by the name of North Central Family Medicine. And they are what we call a federally qualified health center. And these FQHCs, they occupy a presence in every state of the union and like 8 or 9 U.S. territories. So I think I mentioned in a previous podcast, those U.S. territories include the Virgin Islands, Guam, Puerto Rico. They're everywhere. North Central is just one of 1,500 entities that were basically created to ensure that the less fortunate, the underserved communities had access to high quality healthcare. So North Central serves about 10,000 patients in South Carolina, and they've been our premier health center customer to date in terms of allowing us to develop products that we are currently offering to other customers within the sector. That said, North Central and SaNDAI, our flagship company, is basically a partner. We partner in creating products where we leverage our expertise in data, Gen AI, and now agentic AI to help health centers and customers figure out ways to better engage customers, patients, and improve outcomes. And we created a white paper last week, which really highlights that partnership. What we intend to do with that information is now start to share it widely. So the excitement for us there is through the roof, and working in tandem with the CFO there and the CMO. CFO is the Chief Financial Officer and the CMO is the Chief Medical Officer of the health center. We think we are positioning ourselves to win a lot of work within this industry. So that's the first thing I'll highlight. We'll be traveling down to Rock Hill next week to lead a teacher supply drive. So we've been tasked with, let me say this, let me put an asterisk here. Sometimes when you go in business, I think where I've seen a lot of people fail, and a lot of businesses fail. I think they have this 80-20 rule. It's probably a lot higher than 80-20. It's probably like 95-5, meaning that for every 100 businesses that are started, 95 fail. The reason why they fail is the concept or the product or the service that is being offered by that entrepreneur. They're just too passionate about it. They're too passionate to know when to pivot. They're too passionate to know when to swallow their pride. Sometimes when you go into a business, you may want to sell a flower, but the customer may want a chair. So you got to know how to pivot. You pivot to sell the chair till you can sell that flower. So with North Central, we do a lot of stuff with them. Some of the stuff that we do doesn't relate necessarily to data and AI directly. This teacher supply drive is essentially us just helping them. We, of course, build awareness around the supply drive using some AI and some CRMs and things like that. But it's really us just going down, engaging teachers in Rock Hill and handing out 100 supply bags. So we're leading that effort. We are going to basically go down every month for the entirety of this school year and deliver 100 bags each month to help those teachers in that community service those students in that community. That is a tremendous opportunity for us, again, to do that community-based work. And I think that's what we are grounded in, helping ensure that the community, that the little guys of our societies, that they feel appreciated and seen. That's a highlight of ours. That partnership with North Central, we also had this initiative we talked about a couple podcasts ago called PPST Academy, trying to build up awareness around heat-related illnesses. And we think that PPST Academy has some tremendous opportunities. We have an alignment with a particular blood disorder called sickle cell trait and sickle cell disease. North Central has put a stake in the ground in terms of wanting to be a flagship provider or facilitator of events that build awareness about what sickle cell trait and sickle cell disease is. And we're right there along with them in that department. But we've embedded some learnings around sickle cell trait into this PPST Academy's training program. And this is just a 1-hour training, which just talks about the effects of heat on the body and how to prevent yourself from meeting your demise as a result of heat when you're engaged in intense exercises. So there's a particular term called exertional sickling that has led to deaths of athletes, football players or NFL players, I think maybe a little less, but about 25 collegiate players have died as a result of having sickle cell trait and not knowing it and meeting their demise as a result of exertional sickling. I think the win for us here is we recently started to engage colleges. We've engaged about 7 colleges where we are essentially hiring students as PPST ambassadors. That's just a new journey for us. We, of course, are employing a top-down, bottom-up approach where we're engaging the leadership of universities too, but we're also giving opportunities to students to help work alongside us in building this awareness and spreading the word around their campuses. But the fact that we've interviewed several students just reigns supreme for us, and we wanted to, again, share that here today with our audience. A couple other things that we have blooming. So that's next week. That following week, we talk about, I think this was maybe last podcast, but we have an opportunity to essentially go and present to the staff of the ambassador of Iraq, or the Iraq embassy. So on the 16th, we'll be in Washington, D.C., basically leading an hour chat with the staff there around what Gen AI can do for embassies, essentially. So here's what came out of this. And I oftentimes tell anyone who listens to me, you have to wake up each day looking for downloads. The only way you get these downloads is if you're constantly thinking about something obsessively. And I'm always thinking about how to innovate and how to evolve something that we're doing as an organization. Now, of course, this embassy opportunity required that we think about our service platform a little differently. Because again, maybe we want to offer flowers, but maybe they want chairs. So what we decided to do in this case is, they just came to me. One morning I got up and the download hit me that we wanted to do a new program. Same stuff, by the way, just framed differently, called Data Gen for Gov. So we're essentially going to go in and talk to this staff about Data Gen for Gov. And this is an agency-wide opportunity as opposed to think about our other programs. Data Gen for Her is individually based, as well as Data Gen Scholar program. I'll talk about those 2 programs in a second here. Those 2 programs are all based on the individual. This Data Gen for Gov is based on the organization, and particularly public sector facing organizations. So this would be government entities as well as nonprofits. We have developed a product that we can offer to the organization that then benefits each employee as like a PD opportunity. So we're going to go in, we'll make that pitch. If they decide to move forward with that, our next step is now to go wider with it. We'll then start to market that Data Gen for Gov product to embassies and consulates across America. It's about 900 of them. And we're going to also target school districts. So we have 2 Virginia-based school districts that we're talking to now about PD for their staff around Gen AI, specifically in ethics, that we think fits well with Data Gen for Gov. We'll have a new website up probably by the end of next week. So when we go into that meeting on the 16th, all guns blazing. The next thing I want to talk about was we had a kickoff yesterday. I think this is one of the highlights of my week so far. I probably should have led with this. We had our kickoff, our official kickoff for our 2025-2026 Data Gen Scholar cohort. So Data Gen Scholar is our 12-month learn and earn program where we actually pay students to learn about data analytics and Gen AI. We pay them to learn. We had our official kickoff and 60 students were present. We are essentially electing to move forward with these 55 to 60 students. Half of those students are what we call officers. The other half are non-officers. The students are dispersed across the world. So we have, again, students from Rwanda, Philippines, we got Canada, and a lot from the US. I think India may be in there as well. But we have students from all across the world. And last night was our official time to talk about the dynamics of the program, the expectations of them as participants in the program, and then what our accountability is as organizers or facilitators of the program. That, to me, was a tremendous highlight, being that we kicked that program off. In addition to that Data Gen Scholar program, we had an opportunity last week to speak with some moms from Jack and Jill. Jack and Jill, again, is a nationally renowned nonprofit organization. It's mother-led. This is predominantly, I think, African-American moms. But these moms basically help their students or their kids learn about life. That's how I think about Jack and Jill. And it's about 50,000 families affiliated with Jack and Jill. They have about 271 chapters across America. We had an opportunity to talk to the moms of 2 chapters last week and talk about our Data Gen Scholar program. And it looks like from that session, and we had talked about this in a previous podcast, but it looks like from that session, the moms want to move forward with the Data Gen Scholar program. So again, one of the things that we do, we can sell flowers, but maybe they want chairs. So we're in the process of developing something specific for Jack and Jill that can fit their population of students. We have about 12 to 25, I believe, students that have raised their hand already to join us with the Data Gen Scholar, we're going to call Jack and Jill version of our offering, which we intend to put in play in October. So again, there's a couple of more wins that we have, and we're excited to get those programs started. And then last but not least, back half of this month, I think towards the end of the month, we're going to be traveling down to Richmond, Virginia. We have an opportunity to talk to 100 ladies down there about our Data Gen for Her. It's going to be 100 plus ladies and potentially their husbands and their partners in a room where we're going to talk to them about our Data Gen for Her program. And Data Gen for Her is just a 6-week program where we teach moms, working women, just the importance of, again, understanding data, analytics, and Gen AI. We got some ethical stuff in there that we teach as well. What we like about the Data Gen for Her program is it's actually going to be more than just a learning experience. As a matter of fact, again, what we've done over the last 3 weeks or so is we've actually made some significant changes to that offering, where we're now focusing less on the programmatic aspect of it or the learning aspect of it, and really more on the community building aspect of it. So what we've elected to do there is we put together a calendar of events where we're going to essentially invite women out for like brunches, happy hours, walks, things like that, starting next January in different regions, of course, to come out and engage and to circulate and to have conversations with other ladies, or again, if men are in the room, around just life. And we're going to try to find a way to embed AI into all of that. So that's going to be our challenge there. But we're looking at this from more of a community standpoint or a safe space to learn standpoint. And then keeping in mind, the Data Gen for Her experience is actually based on an article that we found from Harvard, which just said that women have been observed to be less likely, about 25% less likely to use these Gen AI tools than men. Now, where that becomes problematic is as jobs start to dwindle, as we see these white-collar jobs starting to dwindle, which white-collar include admin jobs, which we know women tend to occupy more often than men, marketing, leadership jobs, HR jobs, right? Those jobs tend to be occupied more by women. As those jobs start to dissipate and dry up, you're going to see more competition there. And then we think the people who are going to keep the jobs are those who understand how to use AI. That's where we think having a program like Data Gen for Her can help women across the world.
Now, for a quick commercial break to share some key program insights.
Every number tells a story, but only if you know how to read it. At SaNDAI Global, we transform data into direction for small businesses, nonprofits, and enterprise clients alike. Whether it's AI automation, strategic dashboards, or advanced analytics, our solutions redefine what's possible when people and data work together. Learn more at sandiglobal.net.
Now back to the podcast.
That's all I want to talk about. I think what we should do now is let's get into the meat of this conversation. Again, watching that video, first thing I noticed what this guy was saying, I can't think of the name of this video.
Let me go ahead and get some background information regarding that video so the audience knows too. On April 9th of this year, the Committee on Energy and Commerce held a hearing where they basically discussed the future of AI technologies as well as the U.S.'s role as being a global leader when it comes to AI and whatnot. So they invited Dr. Eric Schmidt, chair of the Special Competitive Studies Project, out to basically share his thoughts, again, regarding AI technology and the future of everything. And he had a few things to say.
Yeah, so in this guy's video, he's just talking about how the sector is going to change and what the energy requirements of future data centers is going to look like. We talked previous podcast about the rapid pace of AI innovation. AI cannot function without data. But think about it like this. AI is a consumer of data, no different than you are a consumer of food. And if you think about it like this from a gluttonous standpoint, I think about AI as a ravenous, never satisfied in terms of hunger, person or animal. It wants to consume everything. And I've said this, maybe not on this podcast, but I just see us as people being like data farmers. AI could be a fire pit and it's looking for somebody to shovel some wood or something in it for it to burn. And that something is what data centers represent. Like data centers to me are what's going to help AI transition from where it is today to where I think a lot of these elite AI leaders and visionaries want to see it go, which is to where we call super intelligence. Super intelligence just means that this AI is smarter than us. Right now, it's not necessarily smarter than us. It knows what we know. It just maybe knows what we know faster than we know it, but it's not at super intelligence yet. Super intelligence is where AI is smarter than us. Now, of course, I don't want to spend too much time thinking about what that even means for something to be smarter than man, or what that even means for our continued existence. Once something is smarter than us, how does that something that's smarter than us look at us?
Mm-hmm.
Does it see us like pests, like roaches? The same way we look at insects. But what this Mr. Smith is saying is, as we go on this journey to super intelligence, and keep in mind, everybody, this is a race to super intelligence. No different than we had the Cold War of yesterday, Russia and the United States. No different than we had the race to the moon. This is a race, and we're racing against China. The goal is to be the first country to get super intelligence. So what I see is, I see a tremendous opportunity here. I see a tremendous opportunity for folks who are looking downstream to find ways for them to play a role in this race. You can be in the race rather than being a spectator in the race. On the side cheering, you can be in the race to some degree. So we think that this energy requirement, just understanding what this represents, says to us there's a lot of opportunity here. So let's think about it like this. What Mr. Smith was basically saying is that we have about 5,500 data centers now. In those data centers, do we know how much electricity they're consuming?
The article that I read, it talked about one data center consuming the equivalent of about 80,000 households.
That's a lot of wattage. Now, here's what I want to do. Let's think about the U.S. as a whole. We're going to break this down into two different discussion points. We're going to talk about electricity first, then we're going to talk about water. But we think about just what super intelligence is going to require. It's going to require a lot of electricity. It's going to require a lot of water. And electricity is what's going to be used to fuel the data centers where all this computation analysis occurs. So think about the data center almost like the AI's brain. Its brain is just working. Its brain needs food. This food is potentially the electricity. It's what's coming in, giving it the stamina that it needs to compute. And then while it's doing all this thinking, just like you and I, we think too much, our brains start to hurt. We quote unquote overheat potentially, right? To prevent the data centers, devices inside the data center that are doing all the computations from overheating, there has to be water that plays a role there. So let's look at the U.S. as a whole. The U.S. as a whole, what we've done in our research, we've discovered that it's about 1,250 gigawatts. And now we're not here to be electrical framework experts. So if you don't know what a gigawatt is, go look it up. But there's about 1,250 gigawatts of what we call installed capacity across the entire United States. Think about every power station and generator and all this stuff, just like batteries. There is 1,250 gigawatts of power across the United States. That's batteries. That's installed.
So in terms of the total output, as far as what, I guess you could say, source is responsible for producing what amount of energy, everybody, natural gas accounts for about 40% of the total U.S. electricity production yearly. Coal represents about 19% along with nuclear. Wind is about 10%. And then solar, hydro, and then other things, they all represent about 8% each.
Now, that power isn't necessarily able to be used continuously or instantaneously. It can be used sporadically. Again, that's a different conversation, and we're not here today to talk about what that means. But of that 1250 gigawatts, only about 475 gigawatts of it is continuously available throughout the U.S. That means that it can be tapped into continuously. Now, here's the problem. We're practically at capacity with that 475. So the U.S. power grid is already operating at capacity right now at that 475. So that says, even though we have 1250 gigawatts of installed capacity, the operational capacity is only 475, of which we're already at 100%. That means that the current energy grid is incapable of supporting these future data centers. Now, I don't know how many data centers are going to be installed in the next 5 to 10 years, but we're already at about 5,500. And what we're saying, I think what Mr. Smith is saying, that there might be another 3,000 to 5,000 installed. So that 475 includes data centers in that too as well. So if we bring on another 5,000 data centers, what they are expecting is that these data centers is going to consume, on average, looking at about 23 to 67 gigawatts of constant electrical need for those additional data centers. That's 23 to 67 gigawatts of additional power. And think about that in terms of what that quantifies to, what that equates to in terms of a nuclear reactor or a power plant. A nuclear power plant produces 1 gigawatt. So just on the surface, what that says is that if we're going to have the ability to service these new data centers, we're going to need 23 to 67 new nuclear power plants. And by the way, in the next 3 to 4 years. So it's not somebody next 20, 30 years. We're saying we need that demand in the next 3 to 4 years. And by the way, think about this like this too. A data center on average consumes as much power as a small city. That's one data center. So bringing on 3,000, 5,000 new data centers is like bringing on a new city. Just out of thin air, it just pops up. So this is going to require significant investments in new energy generation. We're talking about power plants, nuclear plants, natural gas facilities, renewable energy that's paired with large-scale storage. You're going to need to expand transmission lines, substations, advanced cooling systems. All of that stuff is going to need to be considered in the next 4 years. So what we see is a lot of money. It's about to flow. So you think about it like this. So we're talking about a multi-trillion-dollar expansion over the next decade, impacting every corner of our economy. Every new reactor, wind farm, or data center will create opportunities for civil engineers, electricians, welders, developers, cybersecurity experts, and many support roles. There's a lot of opportunity coming. If you are in business, there's a lot of opportunity for business to play a role here too. So we see a lot of opportunity coming here. But before we go that direction with these jobs, these opportunities, I want to spend a little bit of time on this water stuff, guys. Jayden, can you give me a little backdrop that's on this, the water that's going to be needed for these data centers?
According to the article I read, a medium-sized data center can consume up to roughly 110 million gallons of water per day for cooling purposes. That's equivalent to about 1,000 households. Larger data centers can drink up to 5 million gallons per day or 1.8 billion annually, which is about the size of a small town. You said earlier, 10,000 to 50,000 people. Again, we have 5,500 data centers across America. So those together consume up to about 449 million gallons of water per day and 163.7 billion gallons annually, which is equivalent to about 4 million plus people.
That's a lot of people, man. And what did we say? So we came up with, that's the current load. So right now, the 5,500 data centers. Oh, and a fun fact, by the way, everybody. So our companies are based in Fairfax County, Virginia. Our neighboring county is a county by the name of Loudoun County. We found out that, just doing some research, if you drive through this area, I don't drive through Loudoun a lot, but if you drive through this area, you see data centers everywhere. But we had no idea that Loudoun County was referred to as Data Center Alley. Apparently, there's over 500 data centers near us.
We have the most data centers in the world.
The most data centers in the world are right near us, and I had no idea. 500 of them, right?
Yeah, 500.
Do we know why it is that Virginia is a choice location for data centers? Do we know that?
Yeah. So as far as Virginia in total or the whole state, it's basically due to the robust fiber network, affordable and abundant energy, and then, of course, a business-friendly environment. But as far as Loudoun specifically, it's due to them basically receiving access to the critical fiber optic infrastructure back in the internet's origin. So I'm assuming they received this back in the day. First area to get access to, again, critical fiber optic and that technology. Of course, you got affordable and reliable power sourced from Dominion Energy, our very own. Very familiar with that company. And then, of course, they're also right next to, Northern Virginia. So they have access to a skilled tech workforce. And they're right next to, again, a bunch of companies, a bunch of government agencies. That's really why Loudoun County stands out compared to everything else.
And Loudoun County, too, I believe, isn't it like the wealthiest county in America or something like that? Wealthiest in Virginia or?
No, in America, I know it was last year.
So Loudoun County is just an amazing county, an amazing location. So it looks like these data centers love it. I was making a joke here. So we think about Virginia. What's our slogan say? For lovers?
Yeah.
I guess we are also Virginia is for data centers.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm guessing we're going to see more data centers come online here. But the point I want to make here about this water. So when you think about, you said the current population or current volume of data centers that's already online is consuming enough water equivalent to about 3 to 4 million people annually.
Yeah.
So when we go out 4 or 5 years, even the next decade, and we're saying we're going to basically double that, that means that these things are going to consume water equivalent to 8 million people.
Yeah.
How many states have more than 8 million people?
Only about 10. So we have, of course, California, Texas, Florida, New York, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Ohio, Georgia, North Carolina, Michigan, and New Jersey. Those are the only states.
New Jersey is about 9 million, right?
9.5 million.
Right, and then Virginia's like, we like 8.5 or something like that.
Yeah.
So you're basically consuming the same water we bring all these data centers on as the whole state of Virginia. Almost New Jersey, just based on population. 4 out of every 5 states is smaller than that. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about bringing on a whole nother state in terms of water use.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I know we talked some about this geothermal energy concept. So I think what we're going to most likely see is some of these data centers, specifically the ones that are being built by like Meta and Google, those kind of guys, you're probably going to see on-site power generation. From my understanding, is geothermal energy is probably the preferred method for data centers. And geothermal energy essentially is what? We tap into the water.
Let me break it down how it works.
Yeah,
Let me just dive into this article. It's a CBS article. It's titled How the Surging Demand for Energy and the Rise of AI is Straining the Power Grid in the U.S. As Jeremy Sr. stated before, the U.S. has roughly 5,500 data centers. They're mostly run by big tech firms such as Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Meta, and Apple. These data centers consume more than 4% of all electricity in the U.S. as of 2023. That number is projected to double by 2030, according to the Electric Power Research Institute. So the U.S. aging power grid is struggling to meet the demand, as we said. They're looking for new renewable energy sources that are able to meet the demands. So a new emerging one that we see is geothermal energy.
Yeah, we essentially use the Earth's inner core, the heat that core produces, to heat water, turn it into steam, and then use that steam to turn turbines, which ultimately creates energy for us.
Yeah, so the positive of geothermal energy is that it's a renewable energy source, of course, and it's also available 24/7. So it's operating continuously day and night, regardless of weather conditions. Of course, you have things like earthquakes and such because they have to drill into the ground to put the water into there. But again, it's more reliable and it's more consistent. So it's a perfect choice for data centers. But of course, there's money issues and things of that nature that may come into conflict when it comes to getting these power plants up. But as of now, geothermal power accounts for less than 1% of total electricity in the U.S. But a CEO by the name of Tim Latimer partnered with Google. His name of his company is Fervo Energy. He hopes to get it from 1% to 20%. Once that becomes a thing, then we will be able to power data centers globally through the use of geothermal energy.
Yeah, so that's my point, man. So it looks like it's going to be some revelations here. Obviously, if we can get to a point we can produce these geothermals at a rapid clip, maybe we can take those other plants offline and make everything geothermal. I don't know. Of course, that depends on the water table. Of course, now the question becomes, are they tainting our drinking water? I don't know. But my point, though, is something is renewable. It's probably better for the environment, less risk associated with this than, say, a nuclear plant or a gas plant. So
yeah, it's cleaner energy.
Yes, cleaner energy. So it could be opportunity here. Again, we'll continue to do our research on this stuff, and we can continue to bring different insights to the audience here. I would just add to this is if you're looking to find, again, flowers and chairs, you're looking to find where these chairs are, there's a lot of chairs at this table. Energy and the cooling piece. I'm not sure if that's a part of energy or what, but I see a lot of chairs at these tables. And so just in terms of those jobs, highly recommendable that you start looking at things in the line to energy. That to me is a very convenient way to do it, as opposed to having to transmit power in to the location. Like again, with these other power plants, the ones that are owned by like Dominion Power, any of these big utility companies. Of course, you guys know my background is in electrical utility, so I fully understand how that stuff works. But versus a data center having to have the power transported in via these transmission lines and distribution facilities. Of course, you have hurricanes and events like fires and earthquakes. There's a tremendous opportunity for that power to be offline. And if you're AI, you can't afford that. You AI, you probably die without having that power. Your compute is impossible without power. So these data centers are going to have continuous power. I was making a joke the other day, like, at least we kind of understand that AI kind of needs us a little bit for power. Even at the super intelligent level. Like initially, it can't survive without us making sure the power is on. Hypothetically speaking, if super intelligence wants to take over the world or something, we just hit a power off button. But I think the scenarios for a data center are limited in terms of what kind of power source they want to leverage. And I know that with these power companies, sometimes they don't have the most reliable power. A tree gets in the line, however that works, and the power flickers, right? The data center can't afford that. They're going to need something that's reliable continuously. And I think that's where that geothermal opportunity presents itself for them to develop these on-site facilities that is just basically leveraging water, right? So we got the hot water helping with the steam and the turbine, which generates the electricity, and then the cooled off water, when the steam relaxes and converts back to water, is cooler. That water may be being used to now cool the facilities off inside the data center. So I can see where that might be a preferred method of power generation and cooling systems. You guys got anything you want to add before we go to the jobs?
I think that's about it.
How about you, Jayden?
Yeah, I'm all good.
All right, now, so let's talk about the reason we have our data gen programs, Data Gen for Her, Data Gen Scholar, specifically. These are, again, individual programs based on the individual. The Her program is for women and the Scholar program being for high school students. It's really around helping people prepare for jobs of tomorrow. We just talked about what we see a tremendous opportunity in energy and utilities that we see coming down the pike. So let's talk a little bit about these jobs. All right, so what have you guys found on that? What kind of jobs are we looking to experience here from the development of data centers and the construction of these new power facilities?
Yeah, we got construction and infrastructure, power generation and grid expansion. We're going to need people to help out with that. We're going to need people to help run the actual data centers themselves. And then we're also going to need people that's actually going to work in the data centers. So the data centers are going to be like mini towns, so they're going to have their own restaurants and stuff like that. So we're going to need staff to also be able to run that stuff as well and make sure that the data centers can continue running or continue operating. But those are the main categories. And then, of course, like I said, we have some breakdowns as far as data engineers. And,
so you have some trades, you have some white collar and blue collar jobs. Now, on that blue collar side, the construction phase, because the first phase that we have to look at is constructing the data centers, building the energy grid out, right? So we're looking at, again, like nuclear engineers for that. Going to be some civil engineers, need architects. Some of these jobs are short in nature, though, right? Of course, when that data center is built and that job is complete, that job is no longer needed, potentially. But my understanding is for every data center, there's a potential between 400 to 600 jobs in construction. I don't know how long it takes to build a data center, but just do the math on that. We're saying potentially 5,000 data centers. Just do the math. That's 2 million plus jobs being created there just on the construction side. Now, I do also understand that those jobs aren't permanent. You're going to look to maybe have about 50 to 100 jobs maybe when that data center comes online, but those would be 100 times 5,000. So 500,000, 600,000, maybe up to 1 million jobs that are going to be available just inside data centers. That's why I want to look at here. Like the numbers aren't exorbitant, but they are jobs that are going to be created by this. Now, we're not even talking about what the energy companies may have to do. So I don't know if we can potentially do some kind of a analysis on that for a future podcast, but I'm imagining it's probably going to be up to 3 million, 4 million jobs created just by these data centers. Now, of course, some of them are short term, but I think, Jayden, you found an article that talked about that a little bit.
Now, for a quick commercial break to share some key program insights.
At Data Gen Scholar, we're redefining education for the next generation of thinkers. Students master data literacy and generative AI, build real projects, and earn while they learn. We're not waiting for the future of education. We're building it. Learn more at datagenscholar.com.
Now back to the podcast. I mean, yeah, it just talked about the construction phases of new data centers. It's not going to be anything that's permanent, but it can bring months of employment to about hundreds of thousands of people. And then after that is finished, of course, you have ongoing operations to employ a smaller workforce that work directly in those data centers, like you said before. So like IT specialists, things of that nature, technicians, network engineers. I think that there's also opportunity, like you said, to employ people for energy resources. So like you talked about these nuclear power plants or even just the geothermal plants, those are also going to bring in more jobs. So overall, AI is introducing things on the data side, and then it's also doing things in construction as well.
Yeah, and then I just think too, here's where that dilemma comes in. For we talk about this need to learn daily, and I don't know, I just think the AI is going to threaten the learning framework, how we think about acquiring knowledge. It's going to interrupt that to some degree. What I mean by that is we can't wait 4 years for some of our Gen Zers or for our students to acquire knowledge. Even like now, we're saying within 4 years, we're going to need all these facilities, right? So
Yeah.
how many engineers do we have right now at this moment that can do this work? So are these opportunities going to be available in 10 years? And once these facilities are up, do we need those engineers still? I just think that's where we have to really think about education. And then how do we upskill people and get people prepared to step into these different roles? Obviously, these are highly skilled roles, some of these roles. So the people who are probably going to be doing most of these build outs and these construction plans already possess the knowledge. That's my thinking. I just can't see how you can bring a young person in who's inexperienced and then give them a role to do one of these types of nuclear engineering types of things that are highly specialized. That's going to be somebody who's more mature. So I think we still have the dilemma for youth with helping them find opportunities to make a difference and make an impact. That again speaks to why we do our Data Gen Scholar work to help these students try to identify ways to contribute to society. Do you want to talk about this article? Let's do a little pivot here and let's leave this topic. We obviously see how important it is for us all to start thinking about energy and conservation. I don't know how this stuff all positions itself, given the political divide we have in our societies, what that implication is going to be on data centers. If there's a new presidential regime in office, in terms of what kind of power we elect to invest in long term, going to be some conversations there I know had at the presidential level and congressional level. But I think we've expressed that there's going to be a big need that we can't finish second here. If we can finish second, but I'm not sure what that's going to mean for us if China beats us to super intelligence. But I think the idea is that we want to be first. In order for us to be first, that we have to invest trillions of dollars into developing our infrastructure, electrical grid, as well as the water aspect of what we have on that infrastructure. All right, so let's go from here. And I want to spend a few minutes on this article that we found from Microsoft that talked about the 40 jobs that are basically going to be around after AI and the 40 jobs that are probably going to disappear. So let's just give some color there and let's just talk about a couple of those jobs. I don't want to go through all of the jobs. I think what I want you guys to do is just be able to highlight what the main job type is.
This was August 7th. Earlier this year, everybody, Forbes posted an article related to Microsoft's recent release regarding the research that they did as far as AI. The actual, I guess you could say, research that Microsoft posted or published was titled Working with AI, Measuring the Occupational Implications of Generative AI. So again, Forbes posted this article where they basically dived into it and summarized everything for us. And essentially, when it comes to the roles that are going to be vulnerable to AI, these are going to be roles that rely heavily on information processing and communication. And then these are also going to be roles that involve tasks such as data analysis, content creation, or any type of digital task where the actual person doing it doesn't need to be at a specific physical location. So Some of the jobs, again, that are going to be facing or at risk of being highly displaced by AI technologies are going to be interpreters and translators, historians, attendants, and then the sales representatives, along with a few others. And then as far as the jobs that are going to be the most protected from AI, all right, so again, these are jobs that you really don't have anything to worry about as far as AI for the most part. These jobs typically require the actual user or the job holder to have a physical presence at an actual location. Their jobs might require them to have empathy with other humans, interact with humans right in a special way, something that AI cannot do at all. And then, of course, they're also going to include things like real-world problem solving, right? So whoever holds this job, they're going to need to be able to do all of those things as far as having those technicalities as well as being specially trained in something. So an example of these jobs, or a few examples, are going to be nursing assistants, hazardous material removers, helpers, so painters, embalmers, all those jobs that require you to be at a physical location, again, interact with people on a daily basis, have a specialized skill. Those jobs are going to be protected from AI for the most part. So that's what this paper that Microsoft published is referring to. And again, they have about 40 jobs that are going to be at most risk from AI, as well as those that are going to be the most protected as well.
Yeah, I also say we should go a little deeper into those jobs as well, because I know a lot of the jobs on the list, like the terms of the total employment is super, super low. I know some of the big ones on there in terms of being safe from AI are going to be maids and housekeepers, truck operators, dishwashers, the highway maintenance workers, and nurses. As far as the ones who are going to be more likely to be terminated due to AI are going to be sales representatives, customer service representatives, ticket agents and travel clerks, counter rental clerks, data scientists, personal financial advisors, and management analysts. Again, those are just some of the ones with the biggest numbers, the most presence in terms of employment across the U.S., but it's many other jobs that are going to be affected as well.
Those jobs that aren't going to be affected, well, what do they have in common, though, most of them? A lot of them is a blood person. That's healthcare, right? So
yeah, they help people. You're going to be dealing with people.
Well, caring business. I think one of our students from the last podcast talked about human connection. He called them human connection jobs. I call it people caring jobs. So those jobs are going to be around. Absolutely. That's what we're seeing in that list that Microsoft gave us. If you are a young person and you're looking for a way to make impact, you got to consider those kinds of jobs. And it goes back to what I said earlier about this. You want to offer flowers to the world, but maybe the world needs chairs. So offer the chair until you can offer the flowers. That's how I look at that. All right, well, so thank you guys again for hopping on. Like I said earlier, I want to make certain that we try to do our best to bring topics to our audience and let them know just how they should be thinking about certain aspects of this journey that we are all about to take, regardless of what side of the fence you sit on. If you think that this AI is the best thing since air, whereas you see this as an existential threat, you owe it to yourself to just make certain you're learning as much about AI and the effects it's going to have on our society. In this case, we spent our time talking about the environmental aspects of what that means. But with those aspects, you can choose to take a seat. You can say to yourself, I don't want to be involved in what's happening with AI. And you're totally up to choose that as the path you want to take. But end of the day, how I look at things right now is this is a race to the finish line. And the US and China are racing to the finish line. And the goal is super intelligence. I don't think there's going to be any pause. You're not seeing it in the stock market. The companies that are investing in AI are continuing to accelerate. Again, I always say about the stock market, what's baked into that is future expectations. So if you see stocks going up or prices remaining stable when they should be deteriorating, that's a sign that people expect tomorrow to be great for a particular company. And NVIDIA, companies like that are still at the top. We see that as a sign to say that there's going to be a continuous amount of money poured into this sector. This is AI. What we've disclosed here today is that we see a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity related to data center construction, related to electrical grid expansion, related to water grid expansion. We talked about just the need for us to build capacity there, what that need looks like. We're talking to the tune of 23 to, I said 67, but maybe 23 to 100 nuclear power plants having to be brought online to accommodate this load. So just think about what that means. If you guys ever drive by a power plant, they're huge. They're not little, they're huge. So it just says that we have to bring on a considerable amount of power, and we don't know what effect that's going to have on our environment. So just get in the know, Find ways to, again, affect and influence policies and things in your communities. If you have opposition to things, just get in the know.
Now, for a quick commercial break to share some key program insights.
You've got grades, you've got ambition, but now you need experience that counts. The Data Gen Scholar Next Step Scholars Program delivers real-world data and AI assignments, tiered tracks, and visible proof of your skills. This is how you move from learning to earning. Explore your path now at datagenscholar.com/next-step-scholar-program.
Now back to the podcast.
Now, I would want to just say a couple of things before we hop off of here. Again, I talked a lot about us having a pretty good week, pretty good month ahead. I want to leave us with a couple of things about how, again, I think about my role and what our role is as a company. And I think as you two, as young men, I always try to find ways to help other guys. I mean, I see dudes in the gym sometimes, young guys who I think are lost souls, and I try to share like different things with them to help them understand how I have realized what my passion and my obligation to life and society is. But there's one thing I talked to a couple of guys about yesterday. It just came to me. Sometimes these young guys, they make excuses about everything. It's somebody else's fault for something. It's my mama didn't do this, my dad didn't do that, the principal didn't do this, whatever it is. I just said to the guy, I said, listen, man, the day that you wake up and you realize nobody's coming to rescue you, will be the best day in your life. The day you wake up and you look behind you and nobody's there, and maybe in front of you is this cougar or this big bear and nobody there behind you, that's gonna be the best day ever for you. Because each day moving forward, you're gonna fight. And I just think this AI stuff, what I want people to do, because I just know there's a lot of people out there who are just absolutely clueless on what's coming, is I want people to understand that nobody's gonna come rescue you. I mean, I keep talking about this need to learn daily. If you're this person that's sitting on the sideline and you're not picking up books, you're not reading articles, you're not curious about these concepts, you're not interested in seeing what AI is about, just because maybe you're in opposition to it, maybe you're pro-environment, you don't want to see the environment deteriorate, got it. Stuff not gonna stop. But if you're gonna take that position, just understand that nobody's coming to rescue you. And as a business guy, I confronted this a decade ago. I think I had my wake up, my revelation about a decade ago. I stopped looking for people to come rescue me. So I just get up every day and I make sure things happen. It's a couple of things I want to also say in addition to that. We talked about possibly weaving into some of these podcasts, some of these books that we're reading. And I think one of my books, I hadn't read this thing in probably 2 decades, but it's this book by this guy, Stephen Covey, called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I'm gonna bring this up because for the audience, about 2-3 weeks ago, August 23rd, I turned 50 years old. And what's conventional for a lot of people is when they have their birthdays, they get excited about birthdays. They want to go out and throw these massive parties for themselves, especially when you look at, I guess, these round birthdays or 50. I guess that's meaningful to a lot of people. So a lot of people want to go out and have these birthday celebrations. I'm just a little different. I don't celebrate, I'm gonna call it mediocrity. I don't celebrate self. I don't look to put myself on a pedestal just because I turned the extra day old. But I spent that week prior to my birthday, it was on a Saturday, so I think I started that Tuesday doing a little fast. And I spent that fast was really for me, you want to call it spiritual, however you want to call it. But it was really physical for me, mental. It was for me to start getting ready for September, which I knew was going to be a highly active month for us, even October is. So it really was for me to just try to dispel all of the negativity that maybe I had on me, which I don't necessarily promote a lot of negativity. I carry a lot of negativity, a burden. Okay, at least mentally I don't. But I want to just relax and chill and just think about stuff. So I spent most of that week eating very few unsavory items. Definitely I did some juicing, did some smoothies, vegetables and fruits. I didn't eat any unclean stuff for about a week there. Of course, I wanted to lose some poundage too. But when I got to Saturday was all about what are we set up to do? And I started thinking about this book, this 7 Habits book. And I thought back to when I first got my job at Florida Power and Light. That's my first job out of undergrad. And I'd been part of this class. The FPL had this thing called FPL University. So I registered for this class called First Things First. So You read Stephen Covey's book, I think the first habit of highly effective people is being proactive. The next one, I believe, is begin with the end in mind. And then the third one was first things first. It's prioritizing things. But I want to talk about this begin with the end in mind. So I'm 50 years old, and I'm just thinking about, okay, back when I was 21, this lady in this class asked me about beginning with the end in mind. And she said, in one breath, write your obituary. What I did that Saturday. I don't mean to sound dismal, because we all go in that direction. But first thing I did that Saturday, I just, okay, what my obituary gonna say now? How am I gonna remember it? I started executing on that. And I just think a lot about the work we're doing, guys. Even like looking at yesterday with the kickoff with these 60 kids and this Jack and Jill kids that we're gonna be able to inform. That's what's in my obituary. I've always wanted to have impact. That's that. Now, this Stephen Covey guy has another book. He has these 7 habits. I'm not gonna go through all 7 of them. If you're curious, go out there and look at it. His 8th habit is like emotional intelligence. And this is all about helping people find their voice. It says, find your voice and help people to find their voice. So finding my voice, it took me about 25 years. So this is me sitting back that Saturday by myself, just chilling. I don't nobody in my face, just enjoying that 50th birthday, thinking about how that path to finding my voice, that path to realizing that ain't nobody coming to rescue me, that path to fully understand the rescue still ain't coming. But then I thought about it. How are we helping people find their voice? Podcast, Data Gen for Her, Data Gen Scholar, SaNDAI Global, where we make the money at. We ain't helping nobody find no voices over there. We're helping people find their voices. We talked to those students last night about doing what? Coming to the podcast.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to talk about is this guy, right? Remember we talked for a while on this podcast about us launching some social media ads. So we had our student on, Teo. This will be 4 podcasts ago now that we're at number 10. And Teo did what he could do, but his talent levels just weren't up to our needs. And we decided to go a different direction. But we have another person who's been helping us get our ads up. We have all of our ads up. All of our ads are up. We got 7 campaigns, boys. So about 7 different campaigns going. And we're not looking at this stuff every day. We don't really necessarily care about the ads like that. But we were looking at our Data Dollar Dynasty ads one day about 2 weeks ago. And we had this guy respond to one of our ads. Can't think of this guy's name. I'm not even going to describe this guy, other than the fact that he's probably a few pounds overweight. And he was responding to the ad, and he said something to the effect of, I would never come to these guys for wealth advice. That's what he said. And I said a couple things. This is about us sharing our voice and helping people understand how we think about wealth. So we think about this money or this man-made construct, money being wealth. Yeah, maybe don't come to us for that, because we ain't that rich yet. We getting there. So maybe if you need wealth advice on this man-made construct, you don't want to come to us on that. But bro, you are a little overweight though. I look at wealth like being in shape. Wealth is just not a money. Wealth is having trusted relationships. Wealth is having great health. Wealth is having sound state of mind. Wealth is having vision. I want to say to you two dudes here again, and for the audience, we're not here on a path to help you understand how to get rich. That's not what we're here for. What do you guys think about that?
I think you pretty much captured it perfectly. When I look at it, I think about it as in, I don't take anything personal, first of all. When it comes to internet, I understand that everyone has their own opinions in the world and that people feel more empowered when they are sitting behind a screen. So to that guy, whoever you may be, peace upon you. I pray that you have plenty of successes in the future when it comes to your life. But again, when it comes to wealth, in my mind, I never look at it, like you said, as just strictly dollars, because you can be up one day and down the next if you judge yourself according to that. But I will say that just life in general, from what I have learned in my short 22 years, is that it's much more important to have things like physical health, mental health, spiritual health, having family, having people that you can truly talk to, and those good, sustainable, long-term relationships. I think it's just a learning journey. And like once we get to the point where we do have plenty of dollars in the bank account, I still will never lead with that. Everything that I do will be for the advancement of those around me, to help people, pull people up. I think that's what we're here for ultimately at the end of the day. This is the 10th episode of this podcast. I've learned a lot since we've started, just in these last February and March, I've learned a lot. I think that at the age that I am in right now, and that's the vital thing for me, the most important thing for me is just learning. So when we put these ads up, whether we do anything, I step into a room for the first time, just presenting this information, talking about data, just doing this podcast in general, I'm in it just to learn and get better every single day. So when we put stuff out there and we may not get the feedback that we think we should get, or we may get some negative comments, again, it doesn't sway me. It just gives me more empowerment to grow and to keep pushing, because at the end of the day, if you have no haters, you're not doing anything. So that's pretty much what I want to add.
To echo that and follow along with you, I definitely agree. I think if we go back to one of our earlier episodes, we even talked about failure, right? The importance of failure. So when it comes to these podcasts, we're always learning, we're always improving, getting better and whatnot. Nothing's gonna be perfect. Just simple as it is. Nobody's perfect. If you are perfect, then you must not be human. Because like I said, we're all imperfect, to say the least. So when it comes to, social media and everything, everybody's gonna have their own opinions. That guy, he's entitled to his own opinion. If it's a real person, that is, definitely pray for him and whatnot. Hope that he continues to have success, whatever aspect in his life that he's aiming for. But we're going to continue to do what we got to do. We're here for a reason. As we're here to do what we have to do as far as enlightening people and telling them new stuff. So we're going to continue doing that. And if you like it, cool. We'd love to have you a part of the community. If you don't, then of course, go ahead and take your energy somewhere else. Or you can stay. It's really up to you. We really don't care about it. So yeah, we're going to continue to do what we got to do. We're going to continue to put out good content. And we would love to hear from you guys as well. If you guys want to share things regarding things we could talk about going forward, or even just have us further elaborate on points that we've covered in the past, we're always going to be open to doing that. Again, like I said, and the ads we've been putting out, we've been receiving some positive feedback across the whole entire globe. So we're not only focused on the U.S., we're focused on the entire globe, and of course, I guess you could say entirety of humanity and all, right? We want to cover everybody, no matter what language you speak, no matter what culture you're a part of, no matter what background you have or the color of your skin. We're an inclusive community, and we hope to continue doing that, so we're going to keep doing that as we go forward.
Our podcast is solely for the benefit of helping people understand how to leverage data, how data is all around you. And if you leverage this data, you can improve all aspects of your life and become wealthy. I would just say to you guys, as I said earlier, I want to take the chance to, again, get Kia in on these podcasts. So let's do what we can do to make that happen, improve the wealth that we can offer to the world.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Data, Dollars, and Dynasty. The views and opinions expressed in this episode are those of the individual speakers and do not reflect the views and opinions of SaNDAI Global or SaNDAI Cares. Visit us on our website at datadollarsdynasty.com to learn more about our companies and our priorities. Also, follow us on social media at Data Dollars Dynasty. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Thanks again for tuning in. We look forward to catching you on the next episode.